because this Michigan team can score. It's not like there's some stagnant bunch that relies on their defense.
Welcome to the Street.
I think he can win us games. I think, thank you for your service, Cliff. But I go back and watch last year.
We've got a little baby version of Wendell White, Reggie Bush cooking with Katron Allen, Nick Singleton. Katron Allen runs the ball. Nobody wants to tackle him. People bounce off.
Hey, Straight from the Crest listeners. Stat Guy Chris here to remind you that this episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at Protocol Beverage. Made by a few dudes in Erie, PA who wondered, why doesn't zero-carb beer exist? Protocol's new light shift gives you the ultimate beer experience with 0 carbs, a mere 80 calories, and they're shifting to what light beer should be. Savor the crisp, refreshing taste without compromising on flavor. Thanks, Protocol.
Welcome back to the Straight from the Crest podcast. I'm your host, Michael David Kresovich. Season 4, Episode 9 of the show today, as my great friends Garrett and Justin joined me this week as they left me on a ship alone last week. That's probably why Penn State lost to Ohio. But on today's show, we will recap Penn State's loss against Ohio State, talk about the initial college football playoff rankings, and lastly, we will preview Penn State versus Washington, 8 p.m. on Peacock Saturday night, the whiteout game. As always, this is presented by Protocol Beverage. Link in bio. Fellas, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Hey, Mikey. Yeah, thanks for having me back, Mikey. Sorry about you changing the schedule last week on us last second. Sorry about you doing that.
Yeah, that's a good point by Garrett. I think we all agreed to a specific time, and then you changed the time. And
yeah, I'm sorry for you doing that. That's awesome.
Blaming us.
Okay, we move on. We move on. So, obviously, let's just start here with the Ohio State game. Season's not over. 2013 loss in just Penn State, Ohio State fashion. They seem to always have our number. I'll start with Garrett here. Garrett, your initial thoughts after the win. Where's Penn State at? Is their season ending? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of takes. It was definitely a very similar game to what we've watched probably the last, 4 or 5 years. I would say the 17 and 18 losses were a bit more painful in the form of the gameplay, where we had leads late in the game and could not hold on. Obviously as good of a start as you could imagine with the Zion Tracy pick six. He exercised some demons from the block in the back against Illinois that took away a pick six for AJ Harris. And so, yeah, I think this game was, and our good friend and Ohio State insider Colin Spencer, made a really good point where like this game was lost in June. This game was lost in July. The fact that Penn State couldn't go out and get one Ja'Cory Brooks or an Evan Stewart or anybody in the transfer portal and find another $1.5 million or $2 million to give to one of those guys in NIL. Look, if Penn State has Emeka Egbuka, they win the game because Penn State's number 1 wide receiver, Harrison Wallace, dropped a touchdown in the end zone that ended up being an interception at the end of the first half. So not only can our wide receivers not make neutral plays, but they're making negative plays when they're out there. And so you just cannot continue to have a receiver group and a position group, just play to that low level and expect to win games against, national title contenders. So there's a lot that goes into this. I'm kind of going on a long, rant here that we'll probably, talk more about later on. But, for all the questioning of Coach Franklin, Jock Pate says he continues to be the most accurately rated coach in the country. The resources that we have, the talent roster we have, the facilities we have are 15th in the country. So he's actually doing better than what we should expect. If people want to start giving more money and get up to $22, $25 million in NIL like all the other big dogs, then we can have a discussion. With all that being said, if he loses one of these last 4 games, I'm off the bandwagon. So I want to get off the ride if he doesn't get the next 4 done.
Yeah, I am too. Justin, it's been a few weeks since you've been on the show here. I got a good question for you because I know obviously we text a lot during the games. Penn State goes ahead 3-0. Zion Tracy pick 6. They're up 10-0 in 2 possessions. What was your confidence level at when you looked up and saw 10-0 on the scoreboard?
That's a tough one because the confidence level was the exact same as when it started. Like the 10-0 lead really didn't make me feel any more certain that we would win. I really thought that we had a chance to win, and I do think that we did have a chance to win. When you look at the game, there were a couple plays that didn't go our way. You know, the interception, I think that's a freak play. That guy's not trying to catch the ball. All right, he's trying to break the ball up and it lands in his hands. He makes an interception he didn't know he made till after the play was over and he had rolled out of bounds. The non-fumble, it probably wasn't a fumble, but you maybe get that call. And then the 4th and goal or the goal line stand at the end, that play calling was just strange. But the point that I'm trying to make here is we lost by a touchdown. We left 2 touchdowns on the board. Yes, their roster is probably better than ours from top to bottom, like on a macro scale, but I think our starters compete with theirs. Maybe we don't have the depth. We obviously, it's like 20 million to 13 million. Garrett, you might be able to correct me there.
Yeah, it's something. It's like, Ohio State spent over $20 million in NIL last year. I think we were something at like 6.5 or 7 million.
Okay, well, that's less. All right. So, when Garrett puts it like that, we're outperforming what the roster is. I know I got completely off track of.
You're good, brother. You're good. You're good.
10-point lead, but the point, I didn't feel any better about it. It didn't make me feel like we were going to win any more than I felt like we were going to win when we started the game. I was optimistic, obviously. I really thought we had a chance. It just didn't work out like that. Similar lines to Garrett and yourself. We can lose that game, and I don't think it's the end of the world. We maybe even get to see him again. I think we could win a playoff game. But if we drop one of these last 4 against teams that we should beat 10 out of 10 times, I'm going to be really frustrated. I'm going to have a hard time dealing with that because we've been the bridesmaid, not the bride, for the entirety of the playoffs existence. And for the first year that it goes to 12 teams, if we were to finish 10-2 and sit at 13 or 14, I wouldn't be able to take that. Like, it'd be unacceptable.
Be too much for you. So
Yeah.
Penn State.
Not to mention, go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead. You're good. You're good.
I was just gonna say, honestly, given the playoff rankings that were released last night, we are in such a driver's seat to actually get to our ceiling, which would be hosting a playoff game. That is our actual realistic ceiling. Anything on top of that is gravy right now. If we're not able to get this done the last 4 weeks, we really do have to, take a hard look in the mirror and say, what else can we do at this point? It's just each game, especially this weekend in Minnesota, are going to be just, nerve-wracking. And obviously we're talking about the Ohio State game. I'm trying not to get too deep into it's such a look in the mirror, introspective moment for the program when every time we have this type of loss, because it's been the same thing for almost a decade now. So it's just you're looking for every little thing. This team faces a lot of pressure the last 4 weeks, just because they weren't able to get it done in a game that they really could have. Ohio State didn't play very well Saturday. That's kind of the one disappointing factor about it is both teams played a C+ B- game. When all things are equal, we're going to be a touchdown dog to these guys. If we could have played an A game or an A- game, we probably win. And so I think that's the frustrating part of it in the end.
Sure. We'll get into kind of the implications. To me, all that did was we got to battle our asses off to get a trip to Indy, which I think is out of the question, but playoffs is certainly still there. Let's go back to the instance. Justin, you brought it up, but I'm going to throw the question to Garrett here. I'll go back to him. Penn State only went on to score 3 more points the rest of the game. 0 offensive touchdowns together. Of course, Tyler Warren with the big 30+ yard gain with 7 minutes left. Boom, their 1st and goal from the 3. First down, we see a Bland run up the middle. Second down, they motion and a tackle run to the right. Third down, they motion a tackle run to the left. All of a sudden, we're in 4th down. And if you watch the play, where Drew wanted to go first was he wanted to hit Tyler Warren at the front pylon. And I think he still could have had it. I don't think he gets into the end zone, but that read gets taken away. He's forced to go in the middle to Dinkins there across. It gets blown up, turnover. They take over. What was going on with that red zone play call, Garrett? And what play do you want to see there? Do you think they handled that the right way there with 3 straight runs up the gut?
I mean, obviously not. And I think it's easy to Monday morning quarterback that, but I would say in the moment, I just didn't like where things were kind of going. It felt like the play calling was a little bit hopeful in the fact I just hope that we open up this gap and just run right through and walk in. It was pretty stunning to me that I think there's a misconception out there about what Coach Franklin's role is on the sideline. Like, the mic is up. He's not talking to Kotelnicki. He's not giving his play call. He's not telling him, hey, run it up the middle or do this, like, ever. And actually, so people are giving him crap for things that he's not actually doing. One thing I actually would have done if I'm him after second down or maybe after first down is just say, hey, Andy, like, we need to make sure one of these last two plays or two of these last three plays, like the ball is in 44's hands at some point, and we got to go down with our guy. And the fact that we threw a jump ball to him, 20, 25, 30-yard gain, and then ran wildcat and got him down to the 3, and then he didn't see the ball the rest of the possession is truly stunning to me out of Kotelnicki, because I think he's a good offensive coordinator. I really do. And so, yeah, I mean, we didn't move off the left hash. There was no sprint out, no Prebula. And then, man, the fourth down call was like, all right, you got one look. Like, everybody knows your look's going to be 44, but then your backup look is your backup tight end across the middle with 4 defenders there. And not to mention, you're still running 71 in motion. So it's not like you have Cliff coming across where they have to worry about any misdirection. Like, a truly just kind of hit and hope type of four down play calling there. It reminded me of when I play NCAA, all right, and I get a big play and I'm at the 3, I'm just hoping I get the right play call to get in the end zone. You know what I'm saying? And then I thought of that I'm like, man, I wish Warren got in, but it's fine. Like, it's not real life. Like, that's a video game. It's not real life. Like, we're going to get in. And then we ran like 4 Mickey Mouse calls. And yeah, I think the biggest thing is everybody I've talked to that knows anything, it's like, hey, if you didn't watch the game, but you know something about football, if you have 4 downs to score and you have by far the best player on the field on offense, are you going to give it to him one of those times at least? And everybody's like, yeah, this is just me, but yes, and we didn't do it. And so it's always something with this group, right? And, we're going to be talking about that for a long time.
Yeah, I think to your point, talking about the whole Franklin Kotelnicki blame, I think in that situation, and I could be wrong, but I know what happens a lot of times in the NFL when you have a head coach who isn't a play caller. I think their role there, it really didn't apply here, but usually when it's like a 4th down, the head coach will give the signal to go for it or not, but that's not his play call. James Franklin didn't call those plays. I obviously know Franklin has a lot of influence in the offense. I mean, he's the head coach of the team. To think he doesn't is absurd. Like, I know he has some influence, but nonetheless, Penn State doesn't score. And when you talked about Drew had 31 yards rushing on 10 carries, used his legs to advantage. I wanted to see him get rolled out, maybe even a keeper. I know on a couple of them he technically could have, but Ohio State's backed up against their own end zone there, Justin, and they just man-on-man football, run out the clock. What happened to this dominant, stifling defense we once loved here at Penn State? What happened on that last possession?
See, I think that's something that has been an issue for a longer time than people are willing to admit. We have a very athletic defense. We have a very fast defense, and we have guys that are willing to make hits and play hard. We don't have a big defense. Like, our D tackles, I wouldn't say they're undersized, but they're not hog mollies in the traditional like run stuffer defensive tackle style. I don't see us get bullied often, but that, like, the teams that we've lost to, when I think about like losses that have just sucked, the Illinois loss, maybe it was 2021 at home, where they ran like 3 tight ends and they ran 13 personnel on us the entire game and ran the ball up and down the field, and we couldn't do anything about it on defense. That was with Micah on the field, right? So this has been an ongoing issue where teams can run the ball on us. I didn't think it would happen. I really thought that we would get the ball back. I wasn't expecting a 3 and out. I didn't think that they would chew 5 minutes, just never even passing the ball, but it's not something that hasn't reared its head before. We've struggled against the run. It's definitely the weakest part of our defense, and it has been dating back for a fairly significant amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, you just brought up a good point, but Penn State drained 3 minutes of time to pick up 2 yards and 0 points. And that was the whole theme of its offense. 0 offensive touchdowns, 3 points total, 3 for 11 on third down, 5 penalties for 45 yards, outgained by 100 yards. Drew, I mean, you can nitpick him. He didn't play a great game, I thought. I mean, he completed 12 to 20 for nearly 150 in an interception. You got problems when your offensive leading rusher is your tight end and your leading receiver is Tyler Warren. I mean, Singleton and Allen, 18 carries for 42 yards combined. They didn't show up. Garrett, on the offensive side of the ball, what was the biggest struggle for Penn State? Was it the inability to get open for its wideouts? Was it the play calling? Why don't you think Penn State's offense found success?
We don't. Drew doesn't have anybody to throw to outside of 44. He just doesn't. Where's Amari Evans? Right? Like, yeah, Caden Saunders is hurt, but like, where are any of these guys? Right? Where's Cliff? You know, he did get held on one play early in the ball game. That probably would have went for 20 or 25 yards. But like, I'm not really going to hold back on the fact that like, there were receivers not only had only 3 receptions, they only had 5 targets because they can't get open. And so at some point you have to man up and say, okay, I'm going to beat my guy. So what Ohio State did and what they couldn't do against Oregon, you know, Jim Knowles, their defensive coordinator, he wants to play physical ball in the secondary. But against Oregon, they wanted to play that and they did, but they couldn't because Oregon's receivers are so good, right? So they have 3, 4, and 5-star guys. They have Evan Stewart, who's the number 1 overall receiver in the 2021 class, I believe, 2022 class. And they would just run by. They would get off the line and run by guys. And so now Ohio State could play the defense they wanted to play against us because our receivers are like JV compared to Oregon's. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is.
No,
okay. So they can load 7 into the box and say, okay, let's see if you can run Nick Singleton and Katron Allen at us with a full box. And if you can't, then let's see if you can throw the ball. And we're going to bracket 44 at the same time too. And let's see if any of you guys can beat us one-on-one. And we just can't do it. And so actually outside of, you know, the first drive was pretty solid. Then we had a lull for a quarter and a half, but there was a stretch of time where like Kotelnicki schemed up enough offense to get them back into the ball game, but it was schemed up. It wasn't individual guys making plays. And so, yeah, Drew, you know, I can kind of, you know, bitch about certain things. Like I would like to have seen Bo more involved, especially it's like, okay, clearly we can't throw the ball. So let's see if we can get and they're loading the box. Let's get another blocker out there with having the quarterback be able to run. But the fact that, you know, I just don't think Drew can be blamed that much. And I just don't think he played that poorly. You know, it's, if I'm him, if I'm Drew, I'm taking a long look in the mirror after the season and being like, man, if these guys can't bring in a wide receiver, am I really staying here? Because he's clearly pretty solid. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He sees the field well, and I just don't think anybody's open.
Yeah, I mean, after the field goal there and pick 6 for Penn State's offense, it was a 3 and out, 6 plays, punt, interception, field goal, 4 plays, then punt, then turnover on downs. For Penn State to win these next 4 games, Justin, which we talked about at the beginning, how crucial that is for final season rankings, what must change? Because pick 6s are hard to get. Penn State's not even in that game if Zion Tracy doesn't intercept that ball and runs it back. They can't rely on their defense to be its offense. What must change for Penn State? I know Garrett just talked about the ability to make plays, but what's got to change?
You mean you can't just run a mean pick 6? I don't know. I don't get that.
That's a great play call. Steelers run it a lot. We get a lot of points out of it. That's been working for, I don't know.
Nope, we're not talking about the Steelers. NFL doesn't matter. It's a college football podcast. I've never been a big NFL guy. I don't know what's going on there. I'm sure my Chiefs are playing well. Haven't really watched
I heard you're a Chiefs fan.
But yeah, what's outside of playmaking ability, the lack of, what needs to change on the offensive side of the ball, Justin, for you to feel confident?
So in the next 4 games, not a lot has to change on the offensive side of the ball for me to feel confident, right? It's not the same level of competition. like I believe that our guys will play better against this level of competition because they should be better. Moving forward, it's tough to just say like the wide receivers have to get better. Like, what does that mean? They have to get more separation. They have to get faster, stronger, quicker, catch the ball better. Like, how do you?
I personally don't think there's anything. That's not an in-season fix. Like separation and get ability to get open. That's not something you pick up mid-season. I think to Garrett's point, like Colt Nicky's trying to scheme these guys, but it's like a 5-star chef, and Colt Nicky has no ingredients to cook. And Franklin's like, go ahead, whip up a dish. He's like, bro, I have nothing to cook with.
Yeah, and I think that another thing, like we talked about Drew's mobility on that first drive that we got the field goal on, but I was not interpreting that drive the same way. What I was interpreting is Drew has nowhere to throw the ball at all, and he is running every time he drops back. Like in my head, I was like, this is not good. This is not a good sign that he's scrambling every play. Like, one, it's not sustainable. Two, it means our guys aren't getting open or he's not seeing the field. But whichever one of the two of those it is bad. It's probably our guys not getting open. I haven't watched the all 22 film, so I'm not going to pretend that I have. But like as far as in-season fixes, I don't think that there's really anything that we can do. We should beat the teams that we're better than, and we're really just going to have to play lights out against the teams that are at our competition level or better, which is what we're going to see, assuming we get to the playoffs. There's no like quick fix to make the offense work better. You know, that it'd be insincere if I offered something that I really thought would make a difference just on the spot.
So with the loss, Penn State drops to 4th in the Big Ten, obviously behind Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State. They're only half a game up of Iowa and Minnesota. Last night, big a night in America. Obviously, a lot of things happening in America. The college football bracket comes out. The first ever college football bracket comes out. Penn State comes in at 7. As right now, if the playoffs started, they don't till December 20th. 6th in the 6th, but the 7th seed technically. Yeah. I was right.
Check that, guys.
Yeah, they're the 6th seed, but they would be the 7th the way the Oregon and Ohio State are. And BYU would be above them because BYU's the
we need Jamie
Big
to
12.
check that.
We'll get Stat Guy Chris on it. But do you think that they deserve that ranking above Indiana? Because I was talking to a few Hoosier fans, which I didn't know that there were many, and they were going at me on Twitter saying, listen, what's Penn State done to deserve that? Start with you, Garrett. Justifiable ranking for the Nittany Lions. I personally saw them back at 8, maybe 9, but where do you think they lay in terms of where they were slotted there?
I think they're fine. I think anywhere 6 to 9 is probably reasonable. Their only loss is to arguably, what I believe they're ranked 2nd, Ohio State. Arguably one of the best teams in the country by a touchdown and had 1 yard to go to, potentially send it to overtime. So, I don't have a lot of complaints with it. You're getting a lot of faux outrage on Twitter from Joel Klatt and other guys and Ari Wasserman from On3, just like freaking out, like, why are we 6, but Indiana's 8? Like, I want to see Indiana try to play Illinois or go have them play Ohio State, and see what happens. And we'll see in a couple of weeks how that's going to go. So I think things will end up working themselves out. If Indiana goes and wins at Ohio State in a couple of weeks, I feel pretty good that we'll get jumped by them. So, it'll end up working itself out. But yeah, I think that them being that high just kind of puts even more of a target sort of on their back heading into the last, several weeks of the season.
Justin, your thoughts on where Penn State was in the initial college football rankings?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the driver's seat for the rest of the season, right? So that messaging that Franklin gave is sincere, it's true. It's completely in our hands. If we're going to make the playoff, it's going to be because we win out, or we'll just go with that. That's the only scenario. If we make the playoffs, it's because we win out. It's completely in our hands. We don't need anything else to happen other than us to take care of business. So feel good about it. I don't know that we're the 6th best team in the country. When I'm looking at the rankings, like who would we be favored against? I think that we'd be favored. I'm not sure we'd get favored against Alabama, who's sitting at 11, but they have 2 losses. I don't think that we're favored. I don't think we'd be favored against Tennessee either at 7, but other than that, I think we'd be favored against everybody else. So
yeah, obviously a lot of football to be played. Penn State's back in action. They're going to kick off in about 3 days. They're going to welcome the Huskies of Washington, the whiteout game, 8 o'clock. It's on Peacock and IMAX. I'm seeing Penn State around 14. I don't know if it's changed much since the last time I look at it, but the Huskies are 5-4. They're 7th in the Big Ten. They beat Michigan by 10 last week, fell to Iowa and Indiana on the road prior, and then they defeated USC last week, defeated Michigan earlier in the season. Will Rogers, senior quarterback, transferred in from Mississippi State, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks on the year. Over the last 3 games, though, he has just 1 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. The running back's Jonah Coleman. He's a transfer from Arizona. He has 141 carries. The next on its roster has 44. He gets the load of their carries, 889 yards and 7 touchdowns. They have 3 guys on the outside, 3 great wide receivers, one of the best wide receiver cores in the country in wideouts Denzel Boston, who's their stud, Gillies Jackson, and Jeremiah Hunter. They have 12 touchdowns, but Boston has 9 of them. Their kicker, 13 of 20 on the season. That's Grady Gross. So a lot of room for error on special teams there. Linebacker Carson Bruner leads the team with 3 interceptions, and they have a heck of an edge rusher in Isaiah Ward. He has 3 sacks. It's a very NFL family coaching staff. Their defensive coordinator is Steve Belichick, as you know, son of Bill Belichick, and their offensive coordinator and play caller is Pete Carroll's son, who he was in Seattle from 15 to 20. Jed Fitch is their head coach for the Huskies. But Garrett, from what you've seen Washington this year, what should Penn State be weary of? Anything they should be on the concern for? What does this team look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, best secondary in the Big Ten, and statistically the second best secondary in the country. Only giving up 140 pass yards a game. A little susceptible to the run. Defensively, all the way back at 75th in the country in rushing defense. So that's cause for concern. This is a team that, could just as they're 5-4, really could be 7-2, perhaps 8-1. They were right up there at Indiana with them through much of the game. So I actually don't love the matchup. Especially just given the history of Penn State after their first loss of the season. I mean, I don't know if we totally remember it or not, but last year, Penn State was tied with a 2-5 Indiana with 2 minutes to go the week after losing to Ohio State on the road. I don't really love the matchup, actually. And so, especially with the inability to throw the ball and inability to get separation and aggressive defense, Penn State's going to have to play a really good game in order to have success this weekend. And so that's all I'll say for right now until we get to our picks. But I think they're a dangerous team. I think Jed Fish is a good coach. Obviously, they've had to rebuild a lot since their national championship appearance last year. And let's not forget, this team was, a score or 2 away from winning a national championship last year. And so if Penn State thinks that they're just going to stroll into a whiteout game and curb stop this team, they're going to have another thing coming. This team is solid, and they just beat the same USC team that we struggled to beat a few weeks ago.
So they lost all 5 starters on their offensive line from last year's team. They lost all 4 starters from their defensive line. It's a completely different roster. Obviously, I'm not saying the opposite of what you just said, but there's a lot of experience there. Obviously, not even on the coaching staff, but these are guys who have been there at the best level. Justin, outside of obviously they lost their entire pass rush from last year. And do you think this helps Penn State's offense in maybe giving Drew a couple more seconds, giving those wideouts a couple more seconds to get open? Because we know the defense is going to have, I think, one of the most successful days it's had against this brand new offensive line Washington has. But let's talk about the matchup when Penn State has the ball. Do you think it's a massive advantage for the Nittany Lions to go up against kind of a subpar defensive line?
So I think it's actually a very intriguing schematical matchup here, where you have Kotelnicki's very unorthodox, move guys around, get guys in space. the Blizzard, right? It's just ice cream with sprinkles, but it looks different every time, and you can't press pause in the middle of a play. You have to line up to what they give you and adjust. And then you have Belichick, who I imagine's just like
His
Bill.
dad. Yeah.
Probably
Mr. Belichick.
Probably just a grumpy guy, wants to run his base defense and doesn't want to have to deal with motions and tight ends snapping the football. So I think that like schematically, it's going to be super interesting to see how that plays out. I can't imagine coming from the NFL. Like I can't imagine that he has really any experience like scheming against somebody like Kotelnicki. I mean, he's been in college all year, so he's seen college offenses throughout the year. But I do think our offense is unique in that aspect. When it comes to like giving Drew more time due to a weak pass rush, I mean, yeah, anytime a quarterback has more time, that's going to help, take some pressure off the decision making because you have a little bit more time to sit there and like really digest what you're seeing. Do I think that that's going to be the difference in the game? No. I think I probably lean more optimistically than Garrett does. The game that we were tied with Indiana, we were on the road. And yeah, we have lost home games after losing to Ohio State, which stinks. But this one's a whiteout. The boys should be rocking. The place should be rocking. Everything's in front of us. After previous losses to Ohio State, season was dead. All right, and you were just praying for a 4 seed in the playoff, which never came. This season, it's different. There's 12 teams that get in. The season's not over. All of our goals are still in front of us. I think we come out and I think we handle business. I don't know if we cover 14 points. I still have to decide what my prediction is going to be, but I do feel like we take care of business.
So Washington, prior to this year, it's a different conference, obviously, but in their last 8 ranked road games, they're 6-2 against the spread, 7-1. I'm sorry, 7-1 straight up, 6-2 against the spread. They're 0-3 all time against Penn State. Never have defeated the Nittany Lions. The last time that they played was actually the same day, and in the Fiesta Bowl when Penn State and Washington played later that day. It was Joe Burrow's crazy game where they spanked Oklahoma in that. But history favors the Nittany Lions in this very small sample. I'm seeing 13.5, over under 45.5. Garrett, is Penn State going to roll away with this, or do you have this as a close game for them?
I think people could probably understand or kind of guess where I'm leaning here, but I actually think Washington's going to win. I don't know if I'm doing like reverse psychology. It's a dangerous position. I think that they're coming on. I don't think they're that bad. I think they have a pretty unique head coach who had a team a couple of years ago in Arizona. They were good last year, but 2 years ago they really improved as the season went on. A couple of interesting stats where Penn State and Washington are very similar when it comes to explosive plays on offense and total offense, but not actually converting it into points. And so both total offense for Penn State and Washington are up in like the top 40 in the country and top 35 in the country, but both teams scoring offenses are actually beneath their total offense. And so both teams struggle to convert points on the offense they're getting, if that makes sense. Both teams are also in the top 4 in the Big Ten in explosive play rate. I just have too much concern about this. I think it's 20-17 Washington. Hopefully I'm wrong, but that's just kind of the feeling I'm getting. I don't have a good feeling about it. I don't have a good feeling about, Coach Franklin, yelling at fans after a game or getting into a fight and fans. I don't know if we have the capability to recenter ourselves after this last week.
I don't think you saw I don't think you watched Franklin's presser after, because he said no one's more upset than me and these guys in the locker room. But right. Yeah. Because they should care that they lost. Right. Okay. I just didn't know if you saw that.
They do. Yeah. I feel like they definitely care. Definitely not, they don't care enough to not jump off sides every time somebody hard counts, but they definitely care. And so there's just certain things that, again, I've been in the camp of defending Coach Franklin. there have been certain things this year, and maybe it's less him and more the defensive coordinator again. We haven't been very disciplined defensively. Stupid penalties at stupid times. We could argue back and forth all day about whether that was a taunting penalty on whoever, I forget who it was, but to keep the drive alive and lead to 7 points for Ohio State. But Coach Franklin said in his press conference this week, it's hard for me to make an argument when that's the letter of the law. We just have guys who you're losing. You get torched on a couple plays, but then the quarterback overthrows the receiver by 15 yards, and you're celebrating like you made the play. Call me old-fashioned. Those are little things that when you aren't the most talented team in the world, add up enough to lose you games. And so whether that comes into play this weekend, I hope not. I'm just worried about it. That's just my gut feeling.
It's natural to be worried because I think every year we overlook this and say, listen, this is a fired up team. They're coming off emotional loss. This is a time where they come out and they show it, but it's a letdown spot every year.
Yeah.
So I mean, Justin, are you on Garrett's side here? Is Penn State losing this game?
No, I'm not with Garrett here. I definitely understand this has.
Frick you, man.
Yeah, I mean, what do you want me to do?
I'm just kidding.
Season's over. We're gonna lose to everybody. No, I mean, it has been a letdown.
Wait till my Purdue pick next week. I got Purdue.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
You're like, if we beat Washington this week, then the letdown has to come.
Yeah.
Oh man, but I think it has been a letdown spot in the past. Like typically after a loss like this, or a loss to Ohio State, a loss to Michigan, right? It feels like the season's over. Then you lose another one. It's different this year. 12 teams get in. We're not praying for a 4 seed. We're gonna win. We're not gonna cover. I don't foresee like a 31-0 win against Iowa like we had last year, which was pretty cool, but that was honestly really bad for us because it gave us like a little too much confidence because we weren't that good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a nice, gritty, grinded out type win, maybe like 23-14. Good guys, meaning Penn State. Yeah, that's what I'm going. 23-14 Penn State.
I'm not too far off that. I have 27-10 Penn State. I think it's a game where they win, but I don't think it's a very pretty one. I think it's going to be pretty close till the end. I think it's going to rival the Illinois game. Honestly, I think maybe a late touchdown just to add a little icing on the top. But I think Washington covers, but I think it's a game that Penn State wins. As far as first touchdown scores for the Nittany Lions, who's scoring the first touchdown? Is it the defense?
I don't think it'll be a wide receiver. So, I don't know. Tyler Warren. I'll go with him.
All right. I mean, that's a cop-out answer, but a great question.
I'm going with the numbers, brother. I'm going with the numbers.
A great question would be like, what do you think the actual over-under is on Penn State receiver touchdowns the rest of the year? While you guys think about that, I am going to go with picking the running back. Katron seems to be starting drives. I think we're going to score first drive. Katron Allen. Book it.
Okay. I'm going Liam Clifford.
Nice.
Hey, can I say one more thing about?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you can't.
I think we need to ditch the 50-50 carry split between Singleton and Allen. Clearly, as we get into the season, these guys cannot get into rhythm. And I think one should complement the other. And in my mind, I think Allen should be complementing Singleton. I think it should be more 75-25 split. Singleton clearly cannot get into he's returning kicks and he goes to the bench and then he comes in the second series and it's just like he's not getting into rhythm, and you have one of the most explosive backs. You're supposed to have one of the most explosive backs in the country. This experiment, I love how selfless they're being. Clearly does not work as the season goes on. And so just something that I've been thinking about over the course of the week. You have these great talents. You have a 5-star running back who is just as kind of regresses as each year goes. And I just think something has to change with that. And so they won't do this. I would love to see him come out and start and play the first 2 possessions. If he gets a big run, gets tired, then get Allen in there in short yardage, kind of like they used to do with Reggie Bush and Lendale White. It's not like they were splitting carries 50-50, right? It was 70-30, 75-25. I just don't it's not working. And so I would like to see some sort of shift in that, just something to think about.
I'm with you on that. It almost feels forced. But it's funny you said that, because I was thinking about that watching the game Saturday when Singleton returns a kick. It's almost like he goes to the sideline, gets ready, comes out, and then it's second down, and it's just ruins the entire rhythm. I think just pick one, play the hot hand. Like I don't know. Singleton's explosive, or I'm sorry, Allen's explosiveness is not where Singleton's is. I think Singleton is a better runner outside, but neither of them can make guys miss. Like I don't know what it is, but hopefully we get to see some offensive fireworks. I know there'll be literal fireworks at the game. Garrett picked Penn State to lose. Me and Justin have them hanging on, but big game Saturday. They got to win this. 3 more to go after. We will be back next week, obviously, for the Purdue preview. But I do want to thank you fellas for coming on here.
Can we pick a famous alumni?
Yeah, you go first.
Just one. Okay.
Yeah.
Rainn Wilson from Mikey's favorite show. Do you know who that is? I hope you do.
Yeah, The Office. I think that show just came out. It's Dwight. I was joking.
Yeah, it's new. I'm gonna go with him.
Okay.
I know Justin's going with Bill Gates, so go with your second pick, Justin.
Goodness gracious. Google's telling me Bruce Lee went to Washington. I don't know the validity of what Google's telling me, but assuming Google is telling me the truth, Bruce Lee is my famous alumni for Washington.
Mine is Nate Robinson. Great two-way athlete there, basketball and football.
The
defensive back.
Dunk contest.
Yeah, you got it. But there you are. Tell everyone at tailgates this weekend that Bruce Lee and Dwight Schrute are Huskies. But thank you guys so much for watching here. Garrett, Justin, I appreciate it, fellas.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Michael. Really grateful for the opportunity.